Isn't it amazing that a coach that's never been anything higher than a position coach at the college level was able to get more passion, more emotion, and more from these players than Bryan Harsin?
Listen, put me in the parking lot, with Bears, and I'll go out there and play. It don't matter.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's the morning after. We are joined by Darrell Dapprich, as we are every Sunday morning, Montgomery radio vet. And man, Darrell, it's really, I'm not huge on moral victories. I'm just not. But this one seems okay to kind of point at, all right, Auburn really had no business being in this game. Double digit in some places. 2 touchdown underdogs. You're on the road in SEC play. You had to replace a coach and change everything on a Monday going into this game. There's a lot stacked against you. And what interim head coach Carnell Williams was able to do with this roster and with this team and with these individual players, extremely impressive despite the loss.
Yeah, I hope that I can find the right words to articulate this, because for Auburn Nation right now, it's just, and for those that watch and listen to this podcast, normally you would say, what is so special about going on the road and almost beating a mid-tier SEC West, maybe the 4th best team in the West, Mississippi State Bulldog team on the road? But you look at all the factors. You look at the way Auburn fell behind and looked like it was going to be ugly. You look at the fact that a really not a very good Arkansas team just boat raced Auburn at home a week ago. Look at the growth and the gap that's been closed in a week by a position coach who just happens to give a rip and love Auburn and want what's best for Auburn. And you can see how that passion, that love, that belief just trickles down to the players, because then Auburn goes on the road against Mississippi State, who's now 6-3, falls behind 22, and very easily could have won that football game. So you're absolutely right. In the open, that's what belief and effort and, the emotion on the sideline, just not keeping your arms crossed when people come off the field and acting angry about stuff that happens.
Yeah. Oh, and acknowledging your players, even like if they field goal in overtime, they're greeted and they feel loved on the sideline. Like
Jeremiah Wright, the 15-yard penalty for him just killing a man, which I don't mind. And again, let me just say this. He didn't hear the whistle because they don't enforce the cowbell rule. And I don't want to sound like sour grapes, but either enforce the rule or get rid of the rule, because there were many times Auburn was lining up at the line of scrimmage, and that's not why Auburn lost the game. So I don't want this to come across sour grapes. But again, I'm just saying enforce it. And Jeremiah Wright kept saying, I didn't hear the whistle. I was playing to the whistle. What does Carnell Williams do? Pulls him over the sideline, puts his arm around him, coaches him up, tells him, hey, look, if you see people, I read his lips. He said, if you see people stopping, then you got to stop. It's not just an audible situation. It's visual too. So it goes to show you belief and love and passion and all that, and caring about your players. They closed the gap. They closed the gap this week.
I'm sorry to cut you off again, Darrell. But another one was Robby Ashford multiple times. It's been well documented. Everybody agrees that his highs are really high, his lows are really low emotionally, right?
Right.
And you didn't really see a whole lot of Harsin consoling him and trying to build him up on the sideline. You saw that with Carnell.
And that's why he was able to make big plays in the 4th quarter on 2 consecutive drives that brought Auburn back both times to take the lead. Well, not only that, the runs that he had that brought Auburn back to get within striking distance. If Robby Ashford sulks and is allowed to sulk on the sideline and gets disengaged because he has a head coach who would rather worries about Mexico than coaching Auburn, then he doesn't come back and bounce back like that. Take Bigsby lit him up at one point on the field for a read option misread, and Robby Ashford wore it, came out there. The players, other than Anders Carlson, kept coming back and performing post mistakes. They learned from it, got coached up, and they kept coming back. And so really, again, you look at it's night and day. I'm not into moral victories either, but This is why I say that if Auburn would have pulled the plug earlier, I would have loved to seen what Cadillac Williams could have done with this team for 9 games as opposed to 4. With this belief and how this team fought for him tonight,
I was pretty in the camp of keep him towards the end of the season. Saturday proved that I was wrong.
Yeah,
and all the folks who said no, get him out. It's worth potentially losing guys to the portal. It's worth potentially, paying more money in the buyout and all that. All the folks who said that were absolutely right. Because look at this.
Go ahead.
You probably beat LSU.
Yeah.
You just beat Alabama, who's going to be like a top 5 team, maybe. It's going to be crazy. You definitely beat Missouri. That's probably the game where it would have happened after that game. And so then it's like maybe you perform better against Arkansas. I don't know. Just I think the season develops differently if that's the case. So yeah,
it does.
I think you're 100% correct.
And think about this: if Auburn was able to pull that out last night, the improbable comeback and the way they fought, there would have never been a sweeter victory in a season where you're just fighting to get to 500. With all the wonderful Auburn victories and Auburn folklore, that would have ranked right up there with him. And all you're doing is beating a 5-4 Mississippi State team on the road. But the implications of that win would have tricked, because here's what could have happened. I just believe in momentum. I believe in belief and snowballing, and I think if Auburn wins that game last night, I still like their chances against A&M and Western Kentucky with what I saw last night. But let's say Auburn does win that game last night. They beat A&M. They beat Western Kentucky. They're in a bowl game. I mean, who would have thought that with this dumpster fire that just happened last week against Arkansas? That's how close, razor thin belief, passion, and then execution. Auburn did everything. They checked all the boxes tonight, except executing things that they needed to execute in opportune times down the stretch that would have given them the victory.
Robby Ashford's going to be a good player by the time he leaves here.
If he gets the right coaching and the right play calling to fit his special skill set, because
it can't get worse.
It can't. You live and die with him. His highs are as high as you can get, like you said. His lows, you're shaking your head and going, what in the world are we watching? And then the next thing.
You got to think after a full off season of having starting experience, that stabilizes. It has to.
Yeah, and I think coaching helps that. I think you get a guy in here to work with him in the off season, mentally and physically. And then, again, we don't know schematically what somebody that's a wizard calling plays could do to call plays for him. I know that Lane Kiffin made Blake Sims look good. And Blake Sims was about as average a quarterback. Blake Sims couldn't carry Robby Ashford's helmet off the field the year that he tried to play at Alabama. Lane Kiffin comes in and is a quarterback whisperer and makes him look good. And he makes other quarterbacks. I mean, Matt Corral was not good until Lane Kiffin. I mean, he lost the job to Plumlee, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. If it's Hugh Freeze, if it's Lane Kiffin, whoever it is, the right coach can really upgrade from a play calling standpoint and put his unique skill set in a position, because you're going to have tape on him and you're going to know what he does well and what the heck to stay away from.
All right. In just a second, Darrell, I'm going to do something else that I don't like doing. And it's highlighting certain plays of the game and saying, what if?
Yeah.
And also, let's ask the question, do you have to keep Carnell Williams on staff? Let's touch on both of those things in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Hey, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, post your job for free, and you can find folks that can help you and your small business or business of any size make more money, be more efficient, and also fit that company culture. Once again, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Darrell, there's 3 plays?
3 plays is what I identified when I got done watching that game that I could pinpoint and say, if any of the 3 happened, that game could have turned out differently. Now, the third would have just extended the game 2 of the 3 might have ended the game. So, it might have. Again, you don't know how the game plays out, but when you look back on them, these 3 plays loom large, in my opinion.
The first one, chronologically, I think we'll both agree on this, is the 4th down. Mississippi State on 4th down. That ball clearly touched the ground. The fact that it was called a catch on the field makes it tougher to overturn. I was watching it with my neighbor, Marcus, supporter of the show. Shout out.
Shout out Marcus. I hear
Shout out Marcus. Absolutely. But he, we were talking about that. It's like, is it enough? Is it enough to overturn? And I actually thought it was. I tried to be as objective as possible watching it. It clearly touched the ground, and he was able to catch it because it touched the ground. And that 9 times out of 10, that's called incomplete. But it was not last night.
Jordan Rogers, the analyst that did the game, 2 or 3 times right out of the gate said, ooh, that ball hit the ground. That ball hit the ground. Then they showed another view, and he said, well, did he have his hands underneath it? So he believed at the end of all the different views and the delay, he believed that it touched the ground, but there wasn't enough camera angles or conclusive, clear evidence to overturn it. It's just like anything else. If that ball would have been ruled right out of the gate no catch, then after review, it would have remained no catch. So there wasn't anything that conclusive. But let's reset this. If Auburn, if that's called no catch, Auburn gets the ball 1st and 10 with a little bit over 4 minutes to go. Up 3? No, they would have been up 3 at that point.
Up 3, yeah.
Up 3, and would have had the ball at Mississippi State's 40-yard line. So a couple first down. I mean, it completely changes the complexion of the game. And you have a chance to put the game away with the way Auburn was running the football. I mean, they rushed it for 256 yards.
Right. I mean, it's brutal. That is absolutely brutal. All right, what do you think the second one is?
Well, the face mask. After Auburn goes up, actually that play, let me take that back. That play that Mississippi State went down and scored after that 4th down conversion. Right. To take the lead, and then did not get the 2-point. And then Auburn came back, scored, and got the 2-point conversion to go up 33-30 with about 1:15 left to go. Then right after that, Anders Carlson tries to squib it, only gets it to the 35, where Auburn does a pretty good job of kick coverage and tackles the guy. And then Sean Jackson gets called for a face mask, which is a 15-yard penalty and brings the ball right to midfield with 1:11 to go. And all you got to do is really get 25 yards and you're in field goal range. And that's what Mississippi State did. Now, would they have called plays differently if they were starting at the 35 and not the 50? Who knows? But I know that 15 yards loomed large when the kicker, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, squeaked it in over the crossbar and would have been only good from about 46. So, and we saw what he did right before the end of the game. He was way short on a 54-yarder. Yeah, so those 15 yards ended up being huge. If you don't give away those 15 yards, Mississippi State might not have been in a position to kick the game-tying field goal.
Then the DPI in overtime is ridiculous to me.
That wasn't catchable. I don't think that was a catchable ball. I think it was. I went back and looked a couple times, and it looked 7 yards out of bounds. So unless that guy can get up that high, that's not catchable.
Yeah, that is never called in that situation. In overtime, you never see that called. And also, I don't think it really matters. I'm with you. It wasn't catchable. And I think J.D. Rim did a good job in coverage. That to me was ridiculous.
Except he didn't turn his head around. That was, I mean, he did face guard and kind of push, but still, that doesn't matter if you face guard, if you bear hug the dude and the ball's not catchable unless you're holding him out of his break. You can't make that. That's uncatchable. It shouldn't be defensive pass interference. So right. Again, I don't know how that would have worked out. They were on the 20-yard line anyway. That was 2nd down. Who knows? That's not as. I just think that extends the game. I think Mississippi State, runs a slant on us and gets to inside the 10. Who knows at that point? But I would say this. I would say that Auburn's defense did everything that it had to do tonight for Auburn to win that game. Look at how turnovers, pressure, 5 sacks, the long sustained period that looked eerily similar to what Auburn went through last year at Jordan-Hare against Mississippi State, where Mississippi State didn't score. Fumble, punt, turnover on downs, drops. I mean, Auburn's defense for a long stretch. And then guess what happened? The offense said, okay, we got your back. And they started scoring in that stretch. So other than, I think special teams let Auburn down. Look at the kickoff return, how big that looks now that Mississippi State got for a touchdown. Not being able to kick the ball in the end zone, missing a field goal in overtime. That play, that was obviously the dagger. That was the third play that I had earmarked as a turning point in the game.
So the reason I don't have that one is because Mississippi State scored a touchdown anyway. So like even
they
if
did,
made it wouldn't have mattered.
But would the play calling have been different if they were down 3 instead of tied? I don't know. It's hard to kind of
impossible to say. Yeah.
All I know is it made it a lot more easier for Mississippi State to win the game when he missed the field goal and again his kicks aren't getting in the end zone and that kind of thing. And so it's special teams other than punting is killing Auburn. Kick coverage, all that kind of stuff. And then the penalties, 14 penalties to 5. Again, head scratching, if you know what I mean. But still, you kind of clean that up a little bit.
Both sides of the ball.
Offsides, both sides of the ball. You clean that up a little bit and quit getting behind the chains. I mean, 14 penalties to 5, even if it's just 9-6.
Yeah.
Who knows how that game turns out? So Auburn's got it. But everything else they did, the personnel groupings. I mean, to see Dylan Brooks and Jeffrey Imba in there and making an impact goes to show you how inept the previous staff was. Because those guys, without Imba and Brooks, Auburn isn't in a position to win that game late. They turned that, they flipped the whole, and then Wooden did a good job. I mean, they really flipped. I think with not only playing those guys, did they make plays on the field? They kept Hall and Colby and those guys a little more fresh, right? Because they got reps.
No question about it. And then also what they did on the back end, because they kind of had to. Donovan Kaufman didn't play, and then Zion Puckett was out very early, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to run out of safeties. And you saw Jalen Simpson in the middle of the field, a ton playing safety. He got a
good pick. Yep,
got a great pick. Love
Bridges
that from my guy Jalen.
Bridges played well, and JD Rim, other than that, man, as a freshman, played really good. Did you notice the corners up on the line of scrimmage a little bit more, playing a little more press man lockdown? I like that. Until that last drive, and they went prevent. I'm like, here we go, but they were more physical. And
you know what, DB, like you never heard from? They just didn't say his name. DJ James.
DJ James. I watched him, but they didn't say his name. He is. He shut down, and he did They thought they were going to call him for pass interference. They did a good job of picking the flag up on that. That was not pass interference, and so they originally threw the flag, and then they picked it up on him.
He is so good. The way they managed him has been so. One of the few things season long has been like, yes.
Guess what other position group played better on defense tonight? The linebackers. The linebackers played better.
So I don't know if I agree with that.
The baseline was piss poor, so of course they played better. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, if they played better, they filled the gaps a little bit better. They tackled at the second level. They were the weakest of the three groupings,
sure,
but they still played better than they did under the Harsin era.
The first few plays they threw right at Wesley Steiner, and then the third play they ran at Wesley Steiner, and then Cam Riley started playing more. So.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Well, and then a ton of walk-ons, or I guess former walk-ons now. So I think they're all on scholarship now. But a lot of linebackers played, a lot more rotation there, and I thought those guys looked just as good, if not better, at the linebacker spot. Did you?
Yeah, so, Barton Lester, Jake Avant, those guys, yeah.
They look like they belong out there. So good for them. Good for them, but
they did. I think, and it was a situation that I think, of course, you have nothing to lose at this point when you're the interim coach and you're playing with house money, but you also probably sat on the sidelines and watched your defense get gassed and thought, we got to substitute. We got to play more bodies. And when that particular position group didn't have to answer to anybody, I mean, obviously, you know that Cadillac just was not a micromanager. He just let all those coaches do everything that they wanted to do from a personnel standpoint, from a rep standpoint, and he just managed things. And so Christian Robinson probably played more guys because of that. Zach Etheridge in the secondary had to do some things. That's the first time we saw Sean Jackson in some heavy sets, fullback. He did a good job picking up the blitz a couple of times. I noticed that in goal line situations. So,
yep. All right, let's talk about Caddy specifically in just a moment. Right here on Locked On Auburn. I want to encourage you to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. Whether you're watching or listening, the link will be there. Be sure to check it out. Throughout this game, Darrell, the camera was on Caddy a ton, rightfully so, with the energy. I mean, it was good television. Did it go to him and, you asked yourself the question, is Caddy really the head coach? It was such a cool, surreal type scene. And it even was for him, too. I still don't really feel like it's registered to him either. But did you kind of catch yourself kind of thinking man, this is really interesting that this is happening?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, I noticed, it's nice to, I hate to say this because I feel like the AU and the logo is more important than any one person. And I never, ever, ever pulled against Auburn, even in the Harsin era. Sure. But it was nice to pull for a coach emotionally and want to see them do well and care about them and love and get emotional. I'm going to tell you something. Not only did the coaching staff come leaps and bounds in 1 week, whoever got a hold of their social media department over the last week and the video people, they finally got it right too. The I Believe video that everyone was retweeting. If you didn't get emotional about that, and when the last picture is Caddy putting the hat on and Cadillac, so the emotional ties to the team came back tonight. And that was because of Cadillac.
Right. So most of that video though was already used. That was Correct. The same video that they used for signing day.
Right.
But the end was changed with Caddy, which was super, super cool. So I just saw a few folks thought that was original.
No, it was. I liked it when they did it at the during signing day.
I think that's when we still believed in what he was saying.
Exactly.
I was going to get all these kids to the NFL, and it's I don't know.
That's why I think that. I think that we're now. No, I don't. I mean, I can look back and say the only thing I really looked at and went on signing day that Harsin did well was when he did the mock NFL draft when he went to the podium. That was it. I mean, they need to copy that and that everything else throw out the window. But I think you look at him and Cadillac's connection to Auburn and his passion for Auburn and any new head coach that comes in and the way those players obviously love him and endear to him, that you just need to go ahead and he needs to have a spot on any future staff, in my opinion.
I'm there with you. He needs to be Auburn's running backs coach until he doesn't want to be anymore.
Yeah. He loves Auburn. It's clear that he does. He wore that tonight and tried to do whatever he could just for Auburn Nation to heal some wounds and to be a salve for those wounds. Yeah. And the players responded. I love the hype stuff. I loved how he was on the sidelines, keeping them hyped up and all that kind of thing. So the fact that there's that emotional connection, it needs to stay going into whatever new regime comes on board.
I'm there with you. Some of the happenings in college football yesterday, and we talked about this over the past few weeks, right, with what Tennessee has done in the second year under Heupel. Their path to the college football playoff gets significantly tougher after getting beat by Georgia. But other things that happened throughout college football yesterday, I think needs to give fans hope, right? Because there's a big chunk of the Auburn fan base that I believe mistakenly thinks that there's a chance this is going to be a 3 or 4 year thing. It doesn't have to be, right? I mean, you saw Hugh Freeze, who I think is on the short list. I don't know if he's an actual candidate, but it's rumored that he is. Vegas seems to think that he'll be Auburn's next head coach. He beat Liberty. At Liberty, he beat Arkansas, a team that Auburn couldn't beat with their current roster, and he did it with Liberty's roster. So, I mean, that's something where it's okay, Auburn's roster is better than Liberty's right now, and so if Hugh Freeze comes in, could he do something like that? Little different. It's that team's Super Bowl, right? So, I mean, emotions are a different thing. It's not perfect comparisons, but that's something I think you can kind of circle and say that's something for the future. And then also, what happened in Baton Rouge yesterday, right? And I know Auburn folks love to see Alabama lose, and that's great. But what you need to be paying attention to is a first-year coach beating Alabama at home with a roster that he is slowly building over the course of the season, and now they're a solid top 10 team. Oh, yeah, and whoever Auburn's next head coach is, they get Alabama and Georgia at home in their first year next year. So all of these things are things you should hold on to and say, hey, hope. This trend of hope, let's keep it going.
Yeah, Auburn's not that far away, not in this day and age of college football. And I'll say this because look at how average the SEC West has become. I mean, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Auburn, Texas A&M, Ole Miss and Alabama and LSU have kind of separated. Well, Alabama's fallen back down into third.
That's right.
And I get it. I mean, you can turn it around rather quickly. LSU the last 2 years was kind of in the desert, in the wilderness like Auburn is, right? I mean, Orgeron, starting in 2020, there was a slide, the COVID year, when they didn't even decide to go to a bowl game. And they're like, we're not going. They had a losing record, and they still could have went. They said, no, we're not going. Last year, what happened there, right? So LSU was definitely, everyone says, well, that's because, but LSU still have the bodies. They still have the players. They still have the talent because of recruiting. Okay, I get that. But look, it's a new age in college football. If Auburn's going to have to go out, if Auburn has to go out and the new coach says, you know what, we need 20 guys in the portal, that's what it'll take. And it's going to have to be a guy, though, that people are excited about to come out of the portal to Auburn. A good recruiting class and about 20 guys in the portal, and then the existing core that hung on, that's got some talent, you can get this thing turned around pretty quickly. You're not going to go from this year to like Gus did in 2012. That was an anomaly where he goes from like a horrible SEC team to playing for a national championship. But you could turn around real quickly and win 8 games and go to a nice bowl game next year.
I think that needs to be the goal. I think it needs to be the goal.
And then just start building.
Expectation.
Yeah, all Auburn people want to see is improvement and hope, for a reason to hope, and see that you're building something and it's trending upward in the right direction. And guess what? For the first time, I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and say this. People can disagree with me. I'm not, absolutely exaggerating or being dramatic. For the first time since the second half against Mississippi State, I feel like Auburn's program trended upwards from one point of the season to the next. From last week to this week, Auburn is improving, and you can see marked steps as far as them trending upwards. Now, where that goes the rest of the year, I don't know.
Right.
But Auburn's in a better place right now, football-wise, than they were a week ago. And I think that's all people want to see is marked progress.
That's right. And, that coaching change was huge. There's no question about it. Darrell, thank you so much for your time. As always, we will do this again Monday night. Well, a little basketball action.
Yeah, you guys, anyone can follow me down there at DAP6410. And then for those in the Auburn Opelika area, I'm on with Ben Taylor on Monday mornings from 7:10 to about 7:30 on Good Morning Auburn Opelika, your old stopping grounds on WANI. Right. So a little, they calls it the Double D sports segment. So we have a good time on Monday mornings.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that is my former show. So I'm glad you're stopping by there. Good folks over there. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com. We'll see you next time right here on Locked On Auburn.